Hey guys, today I'll be showing you another restoration I've been working on, and well, really just a service, but I went on and did a few extra things to it. But this video is actually for Max. This is your realistic concert-made MG-1, and just kind of go over it, show that everything is working now, and kind of talk about some of the things I had to fix on it. When I got this one, guys, the Polyphonic section was dead. And the way they designed this synthesizer, this particular one, your trigger is actually formed from your polyphonic section. It actually takes the pulse of the squares, and that's actually what it uses as a trigger system for your notes. So if you lose your polyphonic section, you lose your note trigger. Not always the case. You can lose it, but still have a high on some of your dividers. As long as there's a high voltage, it'll trigger. But if you have a low form in your waveform, like the low section of 0 volts, then it won't trigger. So it's kind of interesting. So when you lose the polyphonic section, you can actually lose your triggering. Just a note there for anybody out there that's experienced problems with their little MG-1. This one here, what it actually turned out to be for the polyphonic section, I was afraid it was the actual top octave chip. These things use a top octave chip that's just impossible to get. Nobody has one. It's just a very hard to get chip. But I did some scoping around, and actually what it is they use a 4046 phase lock loop as the actual driving oscillator that drives your top octave chip. And this chip also is used for your bell tone. And in the case of this synth, the bell tone didn't work, so I already kind of had some questions about that 4046. But it was actually still producing a waveform on the oscillator. But when I got looking at it closer with the scope, I saw this nice little this high DC rail on top riding the actual waveforms. And so basically with that DC voltage riding on the top, it was actually never causing the top octave chip to do any of the divisions or to do any of the clocking, so to speak. And so it was actually a problem in that chip. So I replaced the 4046, that nice DC voltage went away, everything started working, the top octave chip started actually doing its clocking and divisions, and it came to life. And you actually had no bad dividers in this one. All the dividers were still good, Max, so that's a plus. But yeah, having that top octave chip good, that was the major question I had, just because of the whole triggering circuit. Because if that was bad, what I was going to do, I was actually going to rig and actually put a high voltage, I say high, logic high, let me rephrase that, not high voltage, but a logic high on the trigger rails, so these things would actually trigger for you. If that was the worst case scenario. But now since that works, that's perfect. So fix that, and went through, replaced all the sliders. Max actually supplied the sliders. Evidently he bought these a few years back, and so he actually sent the sliders and switches with it. So I was able to just put these in from not having to source these things. But also, guys, if you are looking at replacing your switches here, I've got to bring up a big note. This is something that I ran into on this one, and now it might depend on where you get your switches from. I don't know. But what I ran into on this one is I kept having a problem with the oscillators after I placed the switches. And what it would do is anytime I would select oscillator sync, it would blow a transistor out, Q7 I believe it is. And what I found out it to be was actually slop in the new switches. And these switches are good, but in this particular area, it has to be from point to point. There cannot be an open in between the switching. And this switch here would actually break in the middle. So the minute you'd flip it over, it would open up, and there would be an open spot. And what that would do is that would freak that transistor out, and it'd turn it on before the switch was made, and it would just cause a short, and it would actually short that transistor out. And then it would kill your oscillators. It would actually it'd lock your oscillator voltage down, so you would have no waveforms from oscillator 1. And in some cases, depending on how it's shorted, it would actually kill oscillator 2 as well. And this took me a little figuring out. I actually looked, and what was really weird about it, guys, I should bring this up. It would run fine with the board setting outside the chassis. I'd have the board setting on my ESD bubble wrap, and no problems. It would work fine. But the minute I put it in chassis and flip the switch, that's when it would kill it. And I thought at first it was an isolation problem in its transformer, you know, because it's a chassis relation. I checked all kinds of stuff to see if it was something that was an isolation problem. And I think what really happens is when you put it in a chassis, there's just more noise, in particular in this chassis. And it's just because the ground references are kind of weird in this thing. And so that was actually what was causing it. And it was just a break in the middle of the switch. So if you're looking at replacing your switches, look at probably keeping this one original. If it's in good shape, just clean it up like I did this one, and that took care of that. So with that said, that's really the two major issues you had, Max, was your polyphonic section and then your bell tone. But everything else seemed to work fairly well. I didn't even see the common 4007 failure, but even I did go in and replace your 4007. I put everything new in it, so it should be reliable for you, because I know you use this thing live. But let me put my camera on my tripod here, and I'll just kind of walk you through everything's working here, and just kind of give you an overview here. Get this on my tripod here. There we go. So anyways, we'll start with oscillator 1, and as you can hear, and actually what you're in there is the trigger. Basically that's the sustain switch is out, so it actually what it does, as you can hear, as long as I hold a note, it triggers there, and in the input mode it won't decay until I let off the note. So just a little different variation there. But back to this oscillator, so here's a -2 octave. Waveforms are working too, and I did a full cal, so everything's to factory spec. As you can hear, it sounds really good. That's oscillator 1, oscillator 2. As you can hear, that's all working right. The two oscillators together. And to show you that oscillator sync is working, we'll go here. Correctly. And your modulation works. As you can hear. And then also your polyphonic section works. As you can hear. Your filter works, and actually I did calibrate your filter so it tracks the keyboard correctly now. And this is just your filter. As you can hear, you can modulate that. I like putting glide on the filter too. So anyways, you got your filter that works correctly. The envelope generator works for your filter, as you can hear. Control the amount of your contour there. So that's working correctly. Also, your bell tone's working now, as you can hear. Let me get this set back up. So you can hear your bell tone's now working correctly, and I do apologize for this amp. I'm still using my lower quality amplifier here. But then we put your oscillators together, and this is just a sound I really like doing here. I'll get your oscillator to modulate a little bit. Of your polyphonic section with your actual oscillators, and you can just hear how great it sounds. That's why I love these little synths, because they're just very musical. It's a mono synth, but with that polyphonic overlay, you can just do some really cool stuff with it. I will show you that all the modulation functions are working here. We'll just go to one oscillator. That's working correctly. It's working correctly for your filter as well. It's all working like it should. And this synth does take a little getting used to, guys, just because it's a top note priority for the monophonic section, and so it's a little different keying circuit than what most Moogs are. That's why you see me playing it kind of weird. So anyways, all that's working. I want to show you this too, Max. I know we brought this up. You was talking about modifying this thing where it would sustain on its own. Well, I will show you after getting this one, because it's been a while since I looked at one. It's been a while, and I found out that this thing does have a continuous mode, so it will self-sustain. And let me grab my camera here. I'm just going to show you how to set this up, because there's really two ways to do it. And both ways are correct. It just depends on how you really want it to sustain here. But you see the switch you got continuous. Well, if you go here, and then we'll open... Actually, we've got to turn something up. There we go. You can see, key is actually where it doesn't even look at your envelope generator, as you can hear. It's just note on and off is really what keyed is. Contoured is actually where it follows your... That's where it actually looks at your contoured generator. Continuous is like that. So you can trigger the note. Another way you can do it too is that if you want it to have effect, you can do an auto contour. You can do it like this. So then you actually have it doing an auto trigger, contoured. see it'll work like that as well. Or you can just go here. Or you can have something like that. So I just want to bring that up because I know that was something we had mentioned about possibly modifying. But then when I got it and I saw that you had that continuous, I was like, well, he's already kind of got this thing set up. But those are just two different modes, and you kind of hear how they react differently and how you can use them differently as well. But anyways, Max, I just want to take a minute, and guys that's watching this video, I just want to take a quick minute and show off this little realistic, and for anybody else that might just be curious about the realistic Moog, this is just another good look at one. And so anyways, Max, really thank you again for allowing me to work on your MG-1 here. I know it took a little longer than expected. I've just been really busy. I've had memory Moogs going on. I've had mini Moogs going on. I've had just all kinds of work. And then they seem to all have these weird little issues this month. So it's not the normal just getting in and do the normal routine stuff. But anyways, I've got this thing. I'm really happy with it for you, Max. And I think it's going to be a great little synth for you. And I don't believe it's going to give you any trouble. But anyways, guys, y'all take care, and thanks again.